What's going on, everyone? This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing. Good morning, good afternoon, happy Wednesday. Here we go. It's Wednesday of Holy Week. What does that mean? Let's take a look over here, everybody. You can see, if you look over here on the right, the percentage change of all the different FX pairs we follow. You can see they're very muted, especially for the last month and for the last few months, right? And that's actually normal behavior for this week of the year, especially as we get now towards the later part of the week, today and tomorrow. Nevertheless, I think it's really important to keep our pulse on the market, take a look around, see what is going on, as well as if there is any opportunity or it's best to stand aside. Let's take a look together this morning, as well as we're going to get into discussing a few important things that we should all be aware of right now. Let's get this started right now. Everyone, first of all, yeah, sure. First of all, good morning. Great to see you all. I'm so happy you're all here. We have a lot of pairs to get into. I use Zoom. You can see in the bottom right where it says Zoom. I use Zoom for these live streams here on a Mac. If you have a PC, there's many more options. Let's start with what's going on. We're kind of muted, right? And when I say muted, we're not seeing ranges are very, very, very small. Let's take a look at some price action so we get a feel of what the markets are doing. I guess the biggest mover today is the S&P, which you could see this big dump the last 30 minutes of trading yesterday. And then you see that price has stabilized against this support. You can see the support over here, a little bit of a lower low coming up, testing this local high right now at the opening. And that has moved a 1.5 points, which is a big move for the equity markets. Not of late. We've seen 10% moves and almost daily 3% moves. But on a normal day, 1.5% on the equity markets, that's a big move. Bitcoin, which seems to be one of the least volatile assets of them all, for real. And actually, I believe it's the only asset. I'm not sure about gold. No, gold. I'm sure is up on the year. I'm not sure, but I think. Let's take a look real quick. Let's see what's going on here. Let's go to January the 1st. Oh yeah, gold's up. All right, gold was trading at 1525 and now it's 1650. I would say gold is probably the biggest gainer of the year. Look at gold over here, also holding this area of support right now. Let's take a look. You could see this is support, right? Let's change that over. And this is quite bullish for gold. And get on you. That's really good stuff over there. As long as you're holding, and this is a good place to take a buy if you're interested. Why? Because again, your stop is below this local low here. Your risk is very, very, very limited, right? But the potential gain, a poke at and test of the high of 1700. And if we start printing new 8-year highs on gold, forget about it. It's off to the races. So look, when you're buying off a test of support as it starts resuming upward, which this is doing, if you do that and only do that all the time, you're going to make a living in this game. All right, Jesse, let's begin there. Let's begin with the Japanese yen pairs. I'm going to start here with the pound. Japanese yen, Bank of Japan has just did a $1 trillion stimulus. It's US dollars. That's 20% of their GDP. They came in strong, just like the US has. And here we have, looks like risk is a little bit on right now. Mildly, the markets are muted. That's the most important thing of the day to realize. Market moves are muted so far today. All right. It's Wednesday of Holy Week. Tomorrow's Thursday. Markets closed on Friday. We're into some resistance over here, though. Right now, you could see this area that's really important. If you follow my mouse and you see this big consolidation over here. This could break one way or the other. There's absolutely no edge at the moment which way this is going to break. If it breaks up or down, what happens? If it breaks down, obviously, and we start getting the mood outside has been pretty. It's so weird. The mood, media, mind control has been like everything is okay, but the internals of the financial system are atrocious. I am completely undecided and trying to weigh in my mind and listen to all sides of the argument about what happens next and where we go. I can't get behind a risk on move right now, so I won't. And I'm just kind of waiting it out over here. I think things obviously continue to get much worse. I just can't get in that risk on mindset. What happens if Jesse on the downside is a little bit clearer? You have this almost sloping. Look at this. Look at that over there. Break below that line over there. And that's a great entry. That's where I personally would focus in on. I'm not really concerned about catching this upside over here. If we break above this high over here, is it possible that we come up and test over here, 136.83? Yeah. Is that a lot of room? That's something to focus in on. How to play that seems a little bit harder, right? How to play that breakout seems a little bit harder. So I'm more focused on the downside over there. Australian dollar, Japanese. I'm not saying there's a trade to the upside. I'm not saying there's not at all. We are about 23 minutes from the U.S. equity market opening. U.S. dollar, Japanese yen looks a lot like the pound Japanese yen. For sure it does. We're into resistance though. We're into resistance. So it's also a holiday week. Generally going into Easter is risk on. What's going to happen this long weekend? Are people going to be willing to take that risk going into a long 3-day weekend? I'm not. Are you? You have to make that decision. This again, this is all I see is a warranted downtrend. Was the move overdone to the downside? I don't think so. They came in with a $4 trillion Fed increasing their balance sheet, U.S. government another $2 trillion. I don't think it was overdone. Is it enough? Is it enough to prevent another liquidity crisis? Probably. Are markets artificially sustained? Maybe. Look over here. I see us into resistance. I'm not looking for a sustained risk on move. Again, whether or not this one holds or we get a look up higher, those are actionable points for me to try to dig in here. So Gustavo, first of all questions are great questions. I do not trade with the RSI. So for sure though, and I wish I could pull it up for you. 1 second, I will pull it up for you. For sure though, you're gonna as a newer trader, you're gonna have much more success on the daily time frame than you would on the 4-hour. Now the RSI is relevant as in any other indicator on the time frame you're trading. So just focus in on that time frame that you're trading and look for signals there. If you see a signal on the daily and you're trading the 4-hour, you can't pay attention to that signal on the daily because you have just so many different time frames and indicators all giving a plethora of signals. So you can't really, you have to focus in on the chart that you're trading. Bear with me. Sorry about that. You have to focus in on the time frame that you are trading and stick there. I won't be able to pull that up for you right now. If you go to the TradingView channel and if you pull up my profile, and then you're able to go to scroll down a little bit, not too far, best time frame to trade. That's what you want to focus in on. And then you're going to be able to, let me just delete that. Sorry about that. So what's up with the DXY? I think it was a little strong over into London. Let's see where it peaked out. We're looking at a 1 hour time frame right now. All right, let me just give you the deeper perspective. Looks bullish. Looks really bullish on the 8 hour time frame here, right? Hard to trade. That's a wild dragon. Look at those moves. Look at those moves. But at the end of the day, if you look at the chart, it's going and slow. Follow this trend line. Follow this trend line here, this yellow trend line. It's sloping upwards. So is the price of the DXY. The dollar continues to dig in there, continuing to show strength. What happened? Where is price now? This was the support. Above this support is bullish. We're still above there right now. Break this trend line to the downside, and then you could start getting near term bearish on the dollar. Right now, everything structurally about this is very bullish. And the only thing you could worry about to the downside is you could say, well, maybe we have possible lower highs being put in. Yeah, but you also have higher lows being put in. What does this mean? This means, if you think about it, that right now we are coming. Follow that yellow trend line, that slope. I don't like that red. Follow that yellow trend line in the middle. That's what you're leaning off of. And now you could also see this, right? There you go. It's a little steeper. Which leads me to believe the downside, you're losing sellers over here. This is a clear pattern to lean off of. I wouldn't take the trend line here. I would take this yellow trend line. A break of that trend line would say to me, okay, maybe we're coming down and maybe we're testing this 98.22 again. Maybe we're coming back down into 97.35. But as long as we're above this yellow trend line, I remain bullish on the US dollar. It's actually quite bullish. All right. So there's not too much going on. This is with the dollar today. We're in a tight range. Going back to a shorter time frame, let's look at the 2 hour. Again, this is, where did that support go? There should be a lot. Let me draw a line down here. Where my mouse is right now, you could see the white dotted line. This area over here was the resistance, right? Since this is broken to the upside, we're just coming down and testing that. As long as you're above this line, this is very bullish. This whole pattern and structure is bullish. A break of this support from last week, right, is going to take us down to this trend line. If that breaks, okay, if you're in any dollar long positions, that's where you want to consider taking them and perhaps reversing them. Maybe the euro would lead the way on the way up. Maybe the pound. Maybe you would see risk on making back a lot of gains. Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. I'm not really sure because you know what? At the end of the day, it's Wednesday of Holy Week. All right. So this is a really important question over there because are China and Iran, giving us real numbers or otherwise? And the reason why that's so important is because that gets into one of the most important things that needs to be in our mind as traders right now is what's going on with the economy. Traders are forward thinking. We're always looking ahead to find out, you don't want to be following the market. You want to be ahead of the market. How do you get ahead of the market? You have to figure out what's going on next. Is the whole situation with C19? Is that kind of working itself out? Are we going to see the people returning to work? So first of all, the numbers in China are absolutely not accurate. They're a magnitude off. Who knows what they are? We have no idea. But we don't need to follow the numbers in China. We need to follow the numbers in Spain, in Italy, which are a few weeks ahead of the numbers in New York. All right. Well, I say New York because that's where the largest outbreak has been so far in the States, but of the US. So by following Spain and Italy, where you're getting real numbers, you get an indication of what's happening ahead of time. Those are the numbers to follow. China just opened up Wuhan province. All those people are now free to travel and leave Wuhan. Do they have a lot of asymptomatic people who are going to be spreading that virus around China and getting a second wave of infections? That's something to watch out for now in the week ahead. Usually, generally speaking, people see symptoms within 5 days of catching the infection. So by next week, we should know um, that's something to watch out for. But no, the numbers are not real. By the way, let me digress for just 1 minute. By the way, this is I only started watching this. You guys are all familiar with Brent Johnson, the dollar milkshake theory, and Luke Gromen, someone who's able to weigh in and give a very intelligent argument for the other side of the position, which is very important for all of us always to be able taking both sides of every trade and understanding them. They had a nice debate. I've only watched 10 minutes of it. I'm going to watch the rest. If it's worth sharing, I'll go ahead and share that later today with you all. Let me digress for a second here. I saw this tweet from Jack. Now, Jack, first of all, there's a couple of things that I really, really, really like about Jack, the founder and CEO of Twitter. Number one, he's the founder and CEO of Twitter. Number two, he's the CEO and founder of Square. Square is the Cash App. Square is an enormous supporter of Bitcoin. Actually, Jack, through Square, funds independent Bitcoin development. Square only will deal with Bitcoin, won't deal with any cryptocurrencies. Jack is a big supporter of saying that the internet needs its own currency, and Bitcoin looks like the one. Now, Square, by the way, great company. Great company. When you're finally ready to lean in and buy stocks, that's one that I would definitely take a serious look at. Why? Because Bitcoin is just going to continue over the next decade growing, and the large part of Square's revenue comes from the purchase of Bitcoin. Now, here I'm not a fan of this though. However, he's saying he's moving $1 billion of his Square equity, to fund COVID-19 relief. After we disarm the pandemic, we're going to shift to girls' health and education and UBI. UBI, universal basic income, I'm not a fan of whatsoever. That just gives the states and governments complete control over everyone. Complete control over everyone. Either way you look at it, the way that Twitter has censored, certain information from a certain side of people, limiting their freedom of speech is it shows where Jack is and where he lies. UBI, I think, is a terrible thing for humanity. And you see that they give it's for girls' health and education, right? So, we're fighting the pandemic. This is a bad thing. This is you got to read between the headlines over here, and I just wanted to share that with you as I'm looking at it. Yeah, but we're all very aware and have been aware for a long time that those numbers out of China are absolutely false. For months now, we've all have been aware of that. So appreciate the heads up and looking out. But we're definitely that's not something we're concerned about. We all know that they're fake. So as we're getting ready here, about 10 minutes from the start of the session of the U.S. equities opening up, we're looking around, we're seeing the dollar come off, but the dollar is nowhere. It's unchanged on the day, right? We're going to show you one more time. Really, dollar is unchanged on the day, so that's not going anywhere. Now, we didn't get into the U.S. dollar, Japanese yen. We didn't get into the euro U.S. dollar. We didn't get into the pound U.S. dollar. All major dollar pairs. We're going to be able to do that in just a moment. I'm just giving a couple of minutes here to see as the U.S. equities open up if the U.S. traders pick a direction that we could kind of build momentum off of. But as you can see over here, that these percentages are so small right now, are so small. There's not much happening in the markets at all. That's the most important thing for you to be aware of today. And that's exactly what I just said, that Twitter has a bias against a certain voice. That's exactly what I just said. Let's check out Australian dollar, US dollar. And this is so the vibe in this community is really helpful, really supportive. We're not looking for any type of conflict, nor do I see any reason for any type of conflict. But just kind of reprogram your brain, reprogram that brain that this is a place to look for learning, for supportive. We're open to all ideas and discussions, but we don't have that like there's no type of like tension that we're looking for. There's none needed. You could take down your defenses. Australian dollar, US dollar. You can see the dollar coming off a little bit, but I'm looking at this as neutral. And why do I say that? Because here's where we started in Asia, and we're back there. I understand, and this is the same thing on the pound Japanese yen that we looked at, the Australian dollar, Japanese yen that we looked at, and they're all at this area of resistance. So, right, this is up a little more because it's the top here and it's the touchdown here. This is exactly where we are. Now, if you break above here, right, do we have a lot of room and some big possible gains to cover? Absolutely. Absolutely. This is big resistance. If we break this resistance, we have some serious room to cover before we hit some next resistance. And that could happen fast, as we fell fast on the downside. There's not much in the way over here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we popped up just the same. However, we're in resistance. And the safer way to play it is not take that breakout, wait for the daily close. Otherwise, you could get caught on the wrong side of a fake out, right? Wait for the retest and then get in. It's just much safer. Don't get caught chasing momentum. Yeah, you can't do that. There's no way to do that. That's not possible. US dollar, Swiss franc. You see here, so I'm seeing why the dollar peaked during London. I'm definitely seeing it come off, but back just to unchanged. I don't see yet momentum. If you take out these lows over here, these local lows on the US dollar, Swiss franc, then I think that's a good momentum play, a strong momentum play. And we're coming down at least into this area of support over here. But right now, I'm leaning towards the sidelines today. Are we going to get a breakout during this session on Australian dollar, US dollar, pound Japanese yen, Australian dollar, Japanese yen, a breakdown against the dollar here? Let's be on alert for that. Let's be on alert from that, because there's still all day today and through tomorrow morning, New York, for some good opportunity. All right. I'm not ready to get behind the momentum of the last, what is it? Let's look at an hour chart. This peak during around the London Open, I guess. All right, but you can see in this moment we're down into support. This is support. Get below this area over here. That opens up the door to the downside. But right now, this is support for me, right? So the euro US dollar also, which has since come off. So I want you to notice, this is really important. First of all, this was the move. We were live together during this peak up, and then price came down here, and we talked about beware of that taking out stops. If you remember from yesterday, we were like, caution. It looks like people are just taking out some stops, as happened over here. Now, price retraced, and look where it retraced to. This is really important. This is going to be really helpful. look at my mouse, look at the resistance in this area. Look over here, it was support. It's a clear level. Look on the right where the price wicked down to. Exactly touch that support and is since bouncing up, right? If you took that short, this was the first level to look for in locking in profits and taking profits. And what's happening now is that we're coming back down. Look over here now at this area of support. That's now resistance. That's where we're trading now. All right. So get above that. All right. Get above that. And we're taking another look at here. And maybe we're going to break above this time. That might be the time to get, that might be the opportunity with safety to get long on the euro US dollar. Right over here though, and right now in this moment, as we're getting ready for US equities to open, we're into resistance, right? So you got to clear that today. You got to clear that this morning. If you're rejected, and the dollar is at support right now, if you're rejected, then you could go ahead and play the rejection to the downside and look for a test down of the support. We're now just 4 minutes from the US equity market. It's opens. We're going to see what's going on. We're going to see what's going on in just a little bit. Hopefully we have an explosive opening. I sense that you guys are sensing the turn in the dollar. Dollar unchanged. So, I mean, I have it at support and I have this trend line support. Again, break this yellow trend line over here. At that point, that would also be on the euro US dollar. That would be us breaking above this resistance. Those two would coincide with each other, right? And that would be a good place to go ahead and take a long on the euro US dollar. That's probably also a long on the Australian dollar, US dollar. Bitcoin, it's kind of muted. I'm going to stay away from there. Let's look at the Australian dollar, US dollar. It's getting ready. We'll watch those this morning. All right. So what else is going on? I think that's the thing to watch this session right now, whether or not we're going to have a turn in the dollar. It would be interesting at the same. I want to keep those pairs up. I want to also take a look at perhaps Japanese yen pairs. We saw that the pound was also at some resistance. Here we have the Australian dollar, Japanese yen also at some strong resistance. Generally speaking, going into the Easter holiday is always been a pretty good week for U.S. equities, for risk on. It's a long weekend though. I'm not so sure. I saw a headline. I don't know what this is. We hope to tell small businesses we won't run out of money. That doesn't sound so positive. I saw a headline that maybe is over here. It was about Spain. Again, it's important to watch what's happening in Spain and Italy. They said that they had the highest number of new infections in the last 4 days. Not so good. Oh yeah, it's a good one. We didn't even get a chance yet to take a look. By the way, we're about 1 minute from the opening. Let's take a look at the pound US dollar right now. We heard reports that Boris Johnson, the prime minister, is doing well. So I see right now, again, and this is across the board, but I see this is the 1 hour. If you look at my mouse, you could see that we're right into this area. Look at this resistance. That's where we're trading, right? So let me pull back a little bit. I think the pound has to really clear a little bit to the upside before things get safe. Look, I would not take a long into this resistance because I short into resistance. If the dollar starts breaking out and this clears, let me go ahead and draw in a bit of this clear big resistance now. You could see it starting. Oh, apologize for that. You can see it starting over here on the left. This support has now turned into resistance, and that's right above you. So right now, looking for a reversal as we come up again into this area of supply for a reversal, right? Break above it, and then we could up here. You can see this near-term resistance. Probably price would come into that, be rejected. If you get a possible test, that's a good place to get it. But right now, you're trading up into resistance, and the pound does not look like it's leading versus the dollar. The Australian dollar does, though. The Australian dollar and euro would be my two go-tos that I would be looking for. So here we go. We're opening up right now. Equity's opening up pretty strong. They're up 1.7% on the day after coming back yesterday and coming back into this area of support. And it looks like so far a successful test off of that support. Let's see if they're able to hold today, which it's just way too soon to know what's going to happen. 48 people in here this morning. I do appreciate you all. Thank you for being part of this community, especially those who have just joining us. Zeron, 10x at least. That's a really good and moderate number. I do say that's pretty safe to say that at least 10 times makes a lot of sense. Let's see what happens. Yeah, the PABS, the DXY is holding over 97 for over a year now. It is slowly grinding stronger. Not only that, look what has been done to weaken it, and it's still holding up strong. There's a lot of debt denominated in dollars. There's a lot of people, a lot of countries struggling to get a hold of dollars. So there's a dollar shortage going on right now that is definitely indicative of a stronger dollar. But then you also have, the amount of money being printed to go ahead and weaken that. Look, the general consensus is that the dollar is going to strengthen, that between 105 and 120, the G20 will step in to do its best to weaken it. They'll probably, win that round. And then it's just a question of, how far the dollar retraces and where it's able to stabilize before it makes another run up. That's the base case. That's always changing, though. That's, the markets are ever evolving, ever fluid. Last week, the US extended a swamp line directly to China. It looks like they might have taken that away yesterday. So it's an ever evolving situation. And that's why we hang out on that swing time frame, because, over a 1 to 5 day period, we're able to really, really capture some trends with clarity. The dollar right here it's going, right? Watch the dollar as it comes into this little area of resistance, right? Here we go, dollar into resistance. I know everyone is kind of looking for that break, and it could happen. Just wait for that little bit of clarity instead of trying to be preemptive. If you ever notice that you try to if I get in early, it's better. No, it's actually better to get in a little late when things are clear. It's a lot easier, taking the middle portion of a move than taking the turn in the move. Sure, the most money can be made in that turn. Here we go as we come down into this area of support, and it's support, right? You expect support's going to be held, not break until it breaks. Then once it breaks, all right, then you could reposition yourselves. It's clear, right? If you allow it to be. Yeah. Okay. So let's look at that again with that type of clarity. We'll follow it over here, Mima. Let's look at the US dollar, Swiss franc. What's good about this area for whether it's the US dollar, Swiss franc, or any other US dollar pairs, if you go ahead and you're leaning in, if you start seeing a reversal here to get long these dollar pairs, is because your risk is limited. If you're looking to get long here, Mima, I'm not sure what time frame you're trading. That would be helpful to know. But the good thing about it is that, again, as long as, let me move that up right into there. Right? Stay above there. Things are looking good. Now you need to wait for a reversal. So you're coming down into the support area down over here. Right? So if you start reversing, if that support holds, the dollar does make a stand here and hold, at that point, then you could look to get long. Now, let me look on the daily. I do like these two lower lows over here. If this support down over, I'm looking bigger picture. I'm looking at the daily now with you, Mima. As long as this support here holds, this is quite bullish. Now, if this little local support doesn't hold today, right, and you come down into this area of support, then that becomes also a solid, even more solid area probably to lean into, because now you're limiting your risk and you're also extending your risk to reward. This doesn't look bullish at all right now in this moment, but that could change really quick. I don't know if you're trading, if you're looking on the 30-minute, the 1 hour, where you're looking for that reversal signal. But things are a little bit, how do I say, sketchy right now, as they always are, as you make that retest of support, right? Here's yesterday's lows. You could see that on the US dollar, Swiss franc. It's almost the same price action coming back down into it. Look, I have no idea whether we're going to hold or not, but if it's going to hold, I look for the resumption upwards. Whatever time frame you're trading, the resumption upwards is the first signal that it's safe to go ahead and take a poke at getting in, right? So even if that was the 30-minute time frame, you have to wait for the price to at least off this support to make that higher high as the signal. All right, that's your first indication that possibly this thing is going to reverse off of the support and you get in, and that's the best look at it. So that's the best way to look at it, Mima. If you see anything else that you could share about that, please do let us know. That's the best insight I could give into that, and it looks pretty clear. We're now about 10 minutes into the market's opening. Not much of an edge yet. Everything is pretty steady. We could look here back at the euro, which is this line over here. If I change the color, you could probably see it better to yellow. This is the local resistance, right? You could see it over here. This is the resistance. Get above, and all that means is that we're going to take a retest of yesterday, and this is local. This is stronger resistance, right? You could see the support over in this area. You could see the resistance here. This area of 1.0920, call it. This is the resistance. If we break above this local resistance, here's where we're coming to this morning. What happens next at this, that will be the decisive action. If you look here on the DXY and you zoom out a little bit, that will be the DXY coming down. Where we'll have it's probably right here. So hold on one second. Let me move this support line to where it's actually support. And why I did that is you could see the resistance. Here we broke above, but here it was resistance, and here it was support. So that this line of support on the DXY is just mirroring this resistance here. This is nothing more than a local resistance. If this local resistance is rejected, that's a good place to get short. That's a solid place to get short, because we're coming down and we're testing this area for sure. And when I say for sure, I say that lightly. Nothing's for sure in the markets. Nothing at all. S&P trading up with momentum today. So I'm going to start maybe on the 4-hour chart with you to get a good look at what's going on. And you could see that this was crazy. This was Friday. Bad news. We gapped up on Monday and then have come up like a rocket all the way into this area. If you look left, you could see this little bit of resistance. That's where price peaked out. And then we came back in and more importantly, so far have tested this area of support. Why support? Here was the resistance, right? Once it broke, you could see, look at this beautiful price action. Broke. I'm going to show you right now why and where we take trades. All right. This is really important. You could see this was the resistance. Price breaks above resistance, comes down and tests it. Successful test of the resistance. As it starts coming up and making new highs, that it's the entry right there. That's the entry. That's the safe entry. And then when you have right there the entry, right, this is the trade into that resistance. That's the easy trade. Now, since then, prices come back down and it's tested that support successfully. It's rising off of it. All right. So obviously is a bullish structure to it right now. Now, what happens from here? Well, I don't know, Jesse. It's quite bullish as long as we remain above this area of support. Now, that's all I could say. You know, the market, they had their chance last night to break this area of resistance, and it so far has held that support. Now, I think that this is wrong. I think the markets are wrong. I don't think that they should be trading up at these levels. It doesn't matter what I think. This is where they're trading. You have to follow price and price action alone. And here we are. Now, if you do break, get another retest of this area of support and it breaks to the downside, that for me is a good area to start digging in for a short play here on the indices. All right. There's a good chance that because there's 120 points between this area of support and this area of support. All right. So you could also draw in local support here at 25.71. I don't need to do that right now. Right now, this is holding. It has a bullish structure to it. Let's see during this session whether or not those gains are able to hold late in the day. And by late in the day, I mean the last 30 minutes of trading yesterday. You could see that price. Where are we? This was it. This was. All right. I'm not sure. I think it's this price bar was the last 30 minutes of trading. This is quite wild. And you can see that we came down pretty hard. Let me look on a 1 hour. Maybe we get an easier look at it. Yeah, this was the last hour of trading in the day. And then this was into after hours. Yeah, Imran, we'll take a look at WTI with pleasure. Before we do, let's see over here. Watch out. We don't know that it's a break yet. And when we just looked at the perfect way to play a breakout on the S&P, right? Same thing here now on the Australian dollar, US dollar, right? Today doesn't seem like a momentum play. And because I say that, watch all of a sudden the dollar, watch it fall apart. But so far going into the session, reading the session, it doesn't seem much like a momentum play. So if you do get a break, right here is the resistance, right? Extend that line. If we get a break, a rejection of that, then that's where you get long. That's a little safe rather than feeling the need to get involved like you're missing out on a breakout over here. That's my 2 cents for what it's worth. And WTI trading up on the day pretty nicely. I have not seen any headlines about what's going on with the OPEC meeting. Looking at the chart on the daily chart, right? So 2 things. This was the trend line we were watching. Once that trend line broke, straight into the resistance, right? Into the resistance, there's an opportunity to short. And right now we are, you can see over here, this line over here, extend it. That's that local support, which we are so far holding. So more than anything right now, I would be neutral on WTI. If we're able to clear above this resistance, all right, that looks good, because then we're probably rising, probably somewhere around 35, 36. That will be an area to look to lean in to see if you could get a rejection off of resistance, or maybe we call as high as 40, near term. Depends what type of cut they're willing to step in with and who's involved. As far as breaking down, lose this local support right here at 23. What is that coming in at? 23.35, 23.35, the low of yesterday. Take that out. All right, then we're coming down, and hopefully we're testing these lows down here. Everything's pretty muted. It's Wednesday. With the news of Kate, Jesse, what was that headline? Was starting to decrease. Well, yeah. So, I mean, what happens if they start increasing though tomorrow? We saw that in Spain. We saw 4 days in a row of cases decreasing and then increase. What happens if in Louisiana a big outbreak starts and then or spreads elsewhere? It's very difficult to say. Overall, it looks like the situation you're starting to see, all over the world. When I say over the world, in the worst outbreak areas currently of New York, of Spain and Italy, you're starting to see the curve being beaten a little bit. So that you're seeing that optimism definitely priced in the markets. But what happens if infections start to rise in China? As Wuhan is now being opened up, what happens if China on Twitter through their propaganda handle was saying you're making a mistake opening up the economy too soon? They'll say, if you notice, China has not opened up a lot of areas of its economy, and we think you're making a mistake. Probably that's right. So that, Jesse, that's not easy to say, because the difficult part there, has the market already priced in all of that? Because the market is up pretty substantially this week. It's been a big week. And the other piece of that is, are we going to see any type of second waves, which would be really, really, really defeating? I think, going back to we're in Easter, Wednesday of Easter week. So it's a long weekend ahead of us. Let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at the US dollar, Canadian dollar. So oil is mildly supportive right now. So the good thing about this, Jesper, is that number one, you're seeing the US dollar right now at support, right? You could see over here, you could see the Canadian dollar into this support. All right. So let me come down to, now you got the bigger picture. We're in this triangle, right? So this could break one of two ways. This could break to the upside. This could break to the downside. This looks like a false break over there and off of support. All right. So I'm decreasing that line, that incline, increasing that incline a little bit over there as we're speaking. And of course, these are rough guidelines, right? So now if we break down to the downside or you break up, either which way, the move should be extended, right? Whether you break up or down, it seems like now you're getting to an interesting spot on the US dollar, Canadian dollar, where actually you want to, look possibly to get involved. And now you have the clear indications to the upside and downside. Let's break it down to on the 4-hour chart though and get a better look at this. All right. Do you want to take, if this holds here, if on the 4-hour you start making higher highs, do you want to step here and take a long? If you do that, if you get a buy signal, right? Be careful on the time of day it'll be occurring. If you get a buy signal over here though, you know, the one thing that I could say and or recommend will be that you have to manage it very conservatively, meaning as you come into this area of resistance, you have to or very quickly set your stop to at least break even because this is resistance. Your risk to reward is 1-to-1, which is not bad if you take a 1-to-1 risk to reward, so long as you lock in your stop as quick as possible. Why? Because as soon as you lock in your stop, you went from a risk reward of 1-to-1 to 1-to-0, right? You have no more risk on the trade. So initially the 1-to-1 is not really, it's not really what you want to do, but not always. Sometimes you do, right? Sometimes it's not a bad thing to do. And if you get into this trade, if you get a buy signal, if you take this trade, just make sure that you do notice that you're coming into resistance. And as you get into that resistance, here's the resistance. All right. Right there, you would need to go ahead and, for safety reasons, if you get up there, lock in your stop, because you're not only at this local resistance right here, you're in this trend line resistance over there. If you break out, boom, that trade's going to go. So these are some good looks at the market. If you do, if you're learning something here, if you're getting any helpful advice, please go ahead and show your appreciation back. Just simply go ahead and hit that like button. It's really, really helpful. You can go ahead and add a comment, also not only in the live stream, but below, helping other people who will be discovering this video later see that there's some good stuff going on over here and help spread the love. So perhaps let's go look at it. Let's go look at both the gold and the DXY. It's a little too early to call one way or the other. All right. So we're hanging out here on the 4-hour looking at the DXY, and we're just coming in for a retest of this area of support. You have this trend line over here. Don't pay so much mind to it. That's just more of a guide to show you we were making lower highs and at the same time higher lows, which means that price is coiling. Price is getting ready for a big move, and we have no idea whether it's going to be to the upside or downside. However, this yellow line, pay attention to this yellow trend line over here, because that yellow trend line is showing us, above is bullish and below is bearish. That's the line in the sand you want to focus in on. I'm going to go ahead and just remove this lower one now that you know lower highs, higher lows, and that's what you should be looking out for over here. It's too soon to know whether or not this support is going to hold or break. Now, the way that you play that obviously is, again, to the downside or break below this trend line. Okay, let's start getting a little bit bearish near term on the dollar. Right now, you're looking as all these resistances and supports are being tested on dollar pairs for them to hold, right? But we're just getting tested now. We don't know. Now, so it's just too soon. It's too soon, and in the next couple of hours, we should be get a little bit of a clearer reading. You could say it's just too soon. Australian dollar closer to a clearer rejection. Let's look at a 30-minute, just because. All right. So what would be the first indication that this is a rejection? Right. Well, this is the first indication. There's wick up here, right? We saw that on the Euro US dollar yesterday, but you need to make lower lows, right? And if you make a lower low, whether it's on the 30-minute or on the 1 hour, the market's not really moving. I wouldn't recommend a smaller time frame. If you start making lower lows, then you could cap your risk, because if you trade back above there, you're wrong. You have all the way down here. to this area, which is going into that trade. That's a risk reward of 1 to 2. So that looks really healthy, right? If you make a lower low, don't take the trade assuming you're going to make a lower low, right? That's where people make mistakes. That's exactly where traders make mistakes, is that they say, okay, this is going to make a lower low, so I'm going to get in here to get this little bit of an advantage. That's not an advantage. Price has not shown you that it's making a lower low, and that actually is making higher highs. So, don't do that. Wait for confirmation. Then you're layering probability on your side. You're not missing out. You're actually gaining. You're not missing out. You're gaining by doing that. So just rewire the brain, learn to think differently. We got to check out gold. Jim, what's going on? Happy Wednesday. Wednesday of Holy Week. This is obviously so the Easter is my favorite holiday of the year, followed by Christmas. Just a little little known fact is that prior to meeting my beautiful wife, my bride, and our 5 kids, I was studying in the Catholic seminary to become a priest. Gold. So I want to see your comment first, Thomas, on gold. Gold's getting hit a little. What? Gold is getting a little bit of a bid off of, yes, and off of this support. And gold should be bid for every good reason. When I say that, I mean, listen, so this, all right, this pertains to both gold and Bitcoin. The reason you saw this big down move over here was because we were in a liquidity crisis. What do I mean by that? There were not enough dollars. People were getting margin calls on equities. They needed to be able to sell whatever they could sell to meet those margin calls. They were getting rid of gold, right? Bitcoin also during this period sold off enormously. The Fed stepped in with $4 trillion, expanding their balance sheet by $4 trillion. Was that enough to prevent a liquidity crisis from showing up again in the near term? I think so. I genuinely do think so. And if it doesn't, this whole thing is collapsing a lot quicker than any of us imagined or thought. But being that I expect that that's enough for the near term, gold, because of that expansion of the money supply by an enormous, unfathomable amount, none of us could really fathom what $1 billion is. Forget about $1 trillion. It's a ridiculous number. So that money is going to be, gold's going to be repriced, in the time ahead. So it makes sense as things are kind of stabilizing, that you would see then gold beginning to be bid. Go back to 2008 after QE was instituted, and after things began stabilize, gold went off on its bull run. That's what we're looking to happen in the next in the next year ahead. We're looking for gold and Bitcoin to lead on these bull runs, right? So gold holding here, it's a nice trade. Why is it a nice trade? Look, if it doesn't hold here and it crashes, that takes out this low, you have a nice little small stop here. But the potential on the upside is another run at the high at 1700, and if that breaks, a possible run at 1900. Now, on the downside, if you do break down over here, yeah, it would be much nicer. All of us want lower gold prices, and not only that, for both gold and Bitcoin, we're aware that they could happen. It's trading. Nothing's a given. Nothing's easy. But the longer that you wait on the sidelines and look, when something does become pretty clear, you could step in and grab it. Matthew was just been sharing the little known facts. Matt's enjoying the quarantine. Happy hour every hour. He's put up some impressive runs though. This week he posted a 4-mile run. Sorry, we're dealing with miles, not kilometers here, but a 4-mile run at a pace of 7.5 minutes, which is a pretty good run. I ran a marathon a couple of years ago when I was training. I think my fastest run, I don't run fast, I run long distance, was 7 minutes and 50 seconds for a 4-mile run. So he's got some speed going on right now. Fabs, all we could try to do, none of us are righteous. You know that more than anyone. All we could try to do is just spread that light of God, help brighten this world, be a beacon of light and hope for others. Right? We definitely need to be full of hope and share that hope. So, Jesse, back to your. By the way, if the equity market is going to be Thomas, if the equity markets do sell off, it's going to be very interesting to watch what happens with both gold and Bitcoin, because both of them have been pretty correlated this week to the equity markets. And why I factor that into my head is that, if the economy is stabilizing and or headed towards a recovery, Bitcoin and gold are going to lead, because all that money needs to get repriced. The expansion of the money supply needs to get repriced into those hard assets. At the same time, if we do come off more on the equity markets, it will be interesting to see if gold and Bitcoin are able to hold their gains, or if they also do injunction also trade off. So that's something that I'm interested into watching. A ton of it's not a conspiracy. If it's not a conspiracy theory if there's gold price manipulation, it's actually a conspiracy fact that there are powerful people in this world who conspire together for power to control the masses. And there have been law cases brought up. I think someone could Google it, against JP Morgan for gold manipulation. The gold market is probably the most suppressed market in the world, because the only way that they keep the current US dollar based system going is by suppressing that market. You could see oftentimes prints of an unfathomable amount of paper money cells coming in against that market. The market's suppressed. The market, however, is being in the process of moving over to Shanghai. They now price gold. The Chinese are buying gold. Eventually, it's not going to be what the price is priced over in London, and it's going to be what's priced in Shanghai. And you're going to see, because you're seeing that flow from west to east, and eventually the real price of gold is eventually we're going to see it. Right. That's probably when the system is reset, and it needs to be reset. Who owns the gold? They're the ones that make the rules. Gold will automatically be repriced at whatever. However, leading up into that time, I think it's pretty fair to say that gold over the next year and a half is going to be priced at 2,500. Just throwing a number out there. I think that's pretty reasonable, right? Let's see what happens if we get caught up in a bull market mania where that takes the price. But gold at 2,500, 12 to 18 months from now, seems right to me. We just expanded the balance sheet by 4 trillion. We're going to be doing more. That seems reasonable. The dollar is not doing anything. Okay, it's unchanged on the day. We're not really seeing much of an edge either which way. This might be a place, if you just see the low to jump in. I don't know if you want to do that on the 30-minute. I like the 1 hour better. Why? Because the markets are kind of muted. So I will follow what happens there. I'll go ahead and actually set an alert. Right, Mima? That I absolutely. I think that it's been fantastic for families around the world to be spending this time together. Uh, and the kids are just so happy. I mean, we thought the kids were happy beforehand, and they were, but they're really, really happy. And it's pretty awesome. Well, which for the happy hour all the time, or for the running the 4 miles at 7.5. All right. So I am noticing here gold, like you noticed, Thomas, coming off a little bit as the equity markets come off a little bit. Listen, there's another thing that I do notice. We have to play all angles. The first angle is price broke above support. Price is retesting and seems to be putting up a successful retest of that support. At the other time, I'm looking at over here, we have, so we have what looks like a possible topping pattern over here. This looks like a possible distribution pattern over here, and a break below that also gives a beautiful sign. Gold's in play, right? I can see it going both ways, and when things could go both ways and when they're in play, that's when things are exciting. Just want to be aware of both sides of that trade. There's another trend line that really won't come into play unless we trade down. And this was this trend line over here, which Anita looked at a reverse head and shoulders. Either way, this neckline over here, well, not a neckline because it's not, the neckline would be touching the left shoulder. This trend line over here, break to the upside, provided a good entry. So if you get short over here, this is where I would be looking. And look how things add up. Do you see this local where my mouse is right now? Do you see that as local support? See that the touch over here, then it was support over here, and then again support over here. It coincides with that trend line. So if you do take the short, this is where I would look for price to mellow out about a little above 1600. Blair, historically, my most profitable trades definitely come during triggers during the London session. And China as well. China holds a lot of gold. Italy holds a lot of gold. Um, Germany taking back their gold. And supposedly the US holds the most gold, but who knows? So if you just joined the channel today, I do recommend, first of all, thank you, welcome, that you go ahead. If you're just joining the live stream, what I do recommend to you is actually watching the replay of this. We're now about 1 hour in. It's been a good, solid, well-flowing hour where we've been able to cover a lot. And since we have covered a lot, now we're kind of, we're all aware of the flow of the market. We all now know what's going on and what anyone is watching for to take any actionable signals. So it's more now of a question of we move into another phase of the live stream here where it's going to be a little bit more hanging out, I would have to say. I did do yesterday an after hours piece here, an after hours piece. I called it after hours because it wasn't during our normal live stream, and it was on, is the price of Bitcoin set to rise into the halving? I do recommend anyone who hasn't seen that yet, go ahead and check that out. It's a short 12-minute video packed with a lot of good information. Richard, China holds more gold than the US. Or you mean that China holds more gold than Russia? So yeah, so the United States holds the most gold by by a factor of 2.5, and then Germany. What year is this? I'm sorry, this is 2017. These are old numbers. And in this, so these numbers are not correct now. Why? Because China and Russia have been buying gold this whole time. So at this point, though, anyone could Google it. The United States still holds the most gold by a large margin. And then whether after that it is, I think it's still Germany, probably followed by China, then Russia, and then the IMF in Italy. But someone could Google that really quick to find a. That's true. That's true. One day, not yet. I mean, the amount of gold the United States supposedly owns, and the reason I say supposedly is because I don't know that I believe it or not. Why don't I believe it? Because it's been what? It's been 30, 40 years since the gold has been audited, right? So call me skeptical, but the United States has such a large margin that it will take probably closer to a decade for China to catch up. And you can't trust those numbers. You're 100% right about that. We know that we can't trust any numbers that come out of China, whether it's for the infections of the virus, whether it's their normal data, their PMI numbers, or if it is their gold reserves. But China is notorious for one day out of the blue coming out and saying, by the way, here's how much gold we own. And they're going to accumulate. And then one day when they want to reprice gold, come out with the real number. Same thing with Bitcoin. One day a country, Russia, China, is going to come out and be like, listen, we have this amount of Bitcoin in our reserves. They're not going to do it beforehand. So if you're trading the 30-minute, I put a signal on the 1 hour. If you're trading the 30-minute, you do have a short signal here now as price made a lower low. That's your first indication that possibly now price is actually resuming toward the downside. I gave it on the 1 hour, and I did that because of the fact that price is not moving. If price was moving fast, then I go down to a shorter time frame. When price is moving slow, price is moving very slow today. I want to give it more room. I go down to a higher time frame. What happens if you went down to a 2-hour time frame? Then you're going to get even a clearer signal. All right. You can see a lot of the look at the noise that's taken out on the 2-hour compared to the 30-minute. You see these false signals on the 30-minute. We had it. Thanks, Jim, for that. I appreciate it. All right. Sorry about that. I had a couple of screaming babies need to attend to. So we're still in a holding pattern. We're still in a holding pattern overall. Right? This is a nice trade that if this is rejected here, that I think that's a nice short over here. Right? I would love to come back out, take out this little bit of support here and test the heavier one on a rejection over there. So one of the most things that I'm interested in is, and the way that you get a feel for the market is by how price reacts. And what I would like to see happen today, if the US equities are able to sell off, I want to see how gold and Bitcoin react. The day in which the US equities sell off and sell off hard, and gold and Bitcoin don't, that's going to be a huge turning point in the time ahead. That's going to be a huge turning point. That's going to mean that correlation is ending, and that most likely the really bull phase of Bitcoin and gold are beginning. So I'm watching that. Yeah, it was also interesting. Last month, China did not sell any of its gold, and it sold off a significant amount of U.S. treasuries. Right. So while the world was looking for dollars, China felt that its gold was more important and didn't sell any of its gold during that crisis, and instead sold dollars. So that's a sign of the go game, strategic game that they are playing, as well as they're also they are digitizing the yuan. And by digitizing the yuan, they're going to be able to definitely help with further worldwide adoption of the yuan. Now, right now, the yuan is probably the most heavily manipulated instrument in the world, more so than gold. Why? Because every day they set the price themselves. They just pick a number and they artificially control the price of the yuan. Now, you can't trade in yuan at the moment. People don't want to accept yuan; they want dollars, right? You can't buy oil in yuan. Now, will that change one day if it's backed by the dollar? Yeah, of course, right? Is that why they're building up these gold reserves? Probably 100%, right? The problem is if you fast forward 10, 15 years, probably the yuan is super strong, but does it weaken during in the near term? And that's the worry, or that's what makes that trade a little bit difficult. If I was taking this short on the 1 hour, right, where would I take my profit? um this would be not a swing trade. If I'm trading off the 1 hour, this is a day trade. And if you go ahead and you put on this horizontal line over here, you could see this area of resistance right where my mouse is. And then if you look to the right, you could see that resistance with support, right? So that's the area. All right. You're looking at a risk reward of 1 to 1.5, more or less. I'm eyeballing it right into that area. Now, what I do, the way I trade, is I wouldn't take profit here. If price was able to go ahead, trigger my stops here, I'm risking about 1.5 into this first area of support. What I do is I set my stop loss to break even. And I'm giving this trade room to fall down into this area of support, which is much stronger support. Look at there, support. Here it was resistance, resistance, support, right? And that's probably where I would take profits on that trade. So this first area of local support, I'd move my stop to break even, and I still want to give it room to see if I could push down into this area. If I came back down into here and I saw that price fell here and then reversed above that area, then I would take profit, even though that's only, I can't eyeball how many pips it is. I'm sure it's not many, right? But that's where I would take profit then on that trade. Yeah, there's a really good episode, Zeron, on Man, so it's if you Google Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, and then you look at it's probably the episode about a year ago. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, aliens, or rather demons. But I'm not so sure they're interested in gold. I think they're looking for blood. What year was that, Blair? Any year? So there's the onshore and offshore yuan, right? The onshore is the domestic currency of China, and then the offshore is where foreigners are able to invest. Now, I think you could go to your bank. I think you could go to Bank of America at least, and you could actually purchase mainland Chinese yuan. But as far as in the foreign exchange, you're trading the offshore. Oanda offers trading of the offshore yuan, but you can't trade the inland yuan. We're still kind of nowhere. I just want to give everyone that little bit of perspective. Since the U.S. session has started, we have not really moved too much. Let's go back as we started this session off and we were looking at these percentages. They're very low. It's Wednesday of Holy Week. People are starting to go on vacation right now. The markets are subdued. All right. Nevertheless, we want to keep our pulse on them. U.S. equity markets are up on the day. They're up 1.33, which on a normal day, going back just 6 weeks ago would be a big deal. It would be a big gain for them. Right now, that's not. We've seen moves of 3% almost daily. All market volatility is down today. Not to say it won't pick up, especially about an hour to 90 minutes from now. It will. But here we are right now, and there's not much to say other than that. We've got a really strong look around this morning about a lot of things that are happening. And I think that everyone has a pretty good idea. The Euro Swiss franc is a pair that I do not recommend trading. This is seeing some pretty strong intervention by the Swiss bank, and you don't want to play games with the Swiss bank. It could really, really, where you think you're really safe, it could wind up really crushing you. They're buying down here. They're defending the Swiss franc. The thing is why you don't want, they're defending it. So I'm going to go ahead here and buy because that's a free trade. Well, the moment they stop intervening, this just falls off a cliff. All right. So it's just better to stand aside. You could look at all of this time period. It's been nowhere. It's not to stay away from this pair completely. Wow. So who knows if the U.S. has any gold? If they did, actually, I'm sure if they did have it, they would probably have replaced it with some type of, something well beyond Tunskin, something that really would have everyone faked out. If the Saudis fails with prolonged oil prices, then Turkey and Qatar will be the last U.S. allies in the Middle East. Yeah, the U.S. is not the best at winning friends and influencing people. That's for sure. Yep, that's true. And another thing also, though, I mean, the one thing though is that you don't want to underestimate the U.S. China is playing a very long-term strategic game, and they can, because guess what? You know, world. I don't even know what his title would be. But our friend, how about Winnie the Pooh? Z. He doesn't have to run for re-election. They basically, as long as they could subdue the people enough to stop them from uprising, they basically could continue to have control over them. In the US, you got to run for re-election every 4 years. It's a little bit different. So people have to play a different game, but don't ever underestimate the United States. The people and the United States is a fast mover. It's able to move a lot faster than the rest of the world. And so all I can say is never underestimate, especially when things get tough, the people of the United States. That's held over. So you're referring to the Federal Reserve then, right? Or is it JP Morgan? So the Federal Reserve has a vault underneath the Federal Reserve building in New York, way deep down. And then across the street and connected in a tunnel is the JP Morgan vault. Think about that. That's crazy. Now, if you remember during 9/11, if you remember seeing the photos underground, there were some people, firefighters, trying to rescue people down underground in a tunnel, and the military stopped them. There were a bunch of gold being moved down there. There are some photos online. I've seen the photos myself in the days afterwards. Probably there still could be found. I have not. It's been, quite a long time now. What are we on? 19 years. So I have not looked in 19 years, but yeah, that makes more sense that there's more gold held in New York. Question is it held by the Fed? Markets are basically unchanged. Some good conversation you all are bringing forth today. I really appreciate learning and the insight. So I thank you for that. Now, over here, also, you could see, again, I do think this is a good trade if the euro is rejected here by this little bit of local resistance. And the reason being is because, right? So what do I have? The support held. Price came up into the strong resistance. That was rejected, right? Price then comes down, test that. That support has become resistance. A double test. If it tested again, then all right, now I like this trade because you know where your risk is and it's really limited. You have your stop here. Hey, if you're wrong, you're wrong. Get out of the trade, no big deal. But if the trade triggers and it's right, now I think you're coming down and you're testing. I'll throw it in over there, just a little light line for those for illustrative purposes over here. You have this is where you're looking, right? What do? I first set my stop to break even, and then I'm looking to see if this breaks. And if this breaks, here it gets interesting. That's a fantastic trade you have on already. Do you take profit here, or does it break down further? And then, it's a good place for an entry if the trade triggers. Hey, Martine. Good day for you too, my friend. Appreciate it. Do appreciate the thumbs up from all of you. If you appreciate what we're sharing in here, what we're building, just giving a simple thumbs up, that helps the channel, that helps Google know that people like what's going on in here. Maybe someone else will come in here tomorrow or a week from now that's going to, as they did today, that's going to help bring some interesting insight to the conversation, and it just continues building up the group as a whole. So I do appreciate that. It's hard to get a read here. Things are basically in slow motion. That's why I don't want people. I want people to kind of step back, get that deeper perspective. Don't be in a rush to jump into something. Wait for something to develop. I'm guessing that's going to be the opportunity is going to be between an hour and 90 minutes from now, if there is one. That's a travesty what's going on over there. Any type of camps like that is an absolute travesty. It's amazing that the controlled media just turns a blind eye to that and lets people get away with that. Turkey did turn towards Russia, though. They started buying some missile defense systems from Russia, and then I think really quickly turned around and reversed that and started then buying again from the U.S. It's amazing how the way that you pick sides is by who you buy weapons from. What is WTI doing on that oversupply? Let's see if there's an interaction. So far, kind of muted. There just seems to be a ton of oil just being stored on ships around the world right now, and there's very little demand for it. And the thing is that everyone just keeps pumping oil because it's the only way that they could bring in dollars. If less oil is being sold, there's less dollars being received. That debt needs to be serviced, goods need to be bought, less goods are then purchased around the world. That brings us further down into that downward spiral, recessionary spiral, depression. That Pabs, appreciate you very much. Appreciate genuinely from the heart, value all, not appreciate, value all of you, the insight that you all bring, helping me improve as a trader, helping me improve as a person, helping me be aware of what's going on in the world. Really important stuff. Extraordinarily grateful for it. Friendships. Speaking of friendships, yesterday, Sherfu has been a member of the community for since I can remember, right? For a long, long time. He lives in the Philippines. I know for sure that he is really he takes care of his mom, and family, and their quarantine now has been extended over there. He has really just not been able. He's having trouble. He didn't reach out asking for help. Mara definitely stepped in there, saw the need, and wanted to see if it was possible to go in there and help him out. And if he's really in need. And if anyone has a couple of dollars, if people are not going now out to buy Starbucks, spending $3 or $4 on a coffee or on a latte or whatever the case may be. And if anyone just has a couple of dollars or whatever, if anyone really feels called and able to help out Sherfu, that would be awesome. And if not, just keep him in your prayers. That's all. That absolutely. But here is his PayPal address, and that's all. Nice, beautiful, beautiful trade there. Keeping that oil short on, and I wish I had mine. Let's take a look at oil. This is why I didn't want anyone to get too preemptive here on this Australian dollar US dollar trade. It's just too soon. Just give it a little bit of room. Where can I put up oil? for you. Hey, thanks, Roman. I appreciate you. I appreciate that comment. Thank you. I'm sorry. Let me delete that comment. I spelled his name wrong, Mima. I do. Wanted to pull up WTI. So as long as I messed up this trade in the fact that on Friday, the last hour of trading, I took a short here. It gapped down lower. I then started retracing up, and I just took small profit instead of holding on to it. And I wish I was holding on to it, still just holding it, waiting for talks to break down. Because if talks break down, then what at that point, you're not only testing the lows, you're taking them out, and it becomes just a beautiful trade. The upside here, I really would wait just to see if this, Friday's high is taken out. If Friday's high is taken out and this resistance level is taken out, okay, just to exit the trade. And then, we're going to look for a better area of resistance to go ahead and get short, because long term, want to be short on oil. Things are pretty subdued this whole session. Nevertheless, we're making the best of it, all of us together. That's for sure. You can see the tight correlation between gold, Bitcoin, and the equity markets still holding up. Yeah, that's what families are for. That's what communities are for. And it's true. You don't even know, the difference between, $5 in New York or $5 in London, $5 in Spain is a lot different than $5 in the Philippines. And, that could go a long way. And all the thanks are definitely to the generosity and heart of Mara, really seeing, just sensing someone in need and really stepping in there to help out. So thank you for that. Yeah, we could let's take a look at again at the S&P. And again, if you're just jumping into the live stream, the first hour is really flows very quickly over here. We're about an hour and 40 minutes in now. The first hour gave a really nice look at everything going on in the markets. Really enjoyable time, well spent, very valuable. But over here, so first of all, obviously we're in a crisis, we're in a downtrend, right? We had this rising wedge. When it broke down, it provided a good shortening opportunity, but it did come over here and it did stabilize so far. And then since this week, we've seen some really sharp rise in US equity markets. What happened yesterday? We saw price tap into an area over here. Look at the top of this candle, the top over here, this area of resistance. And that's where price bounced down into this area of support. This was resistance. It's now here. It was broken, tested that broken resistance. It held the support into the up resistance up here, and then another test during the this is before Asia last night, selling off in the last hours of New York. Watch the price action the last hour of trading in New York. Always, that's what how the big funds are moving. But it was a sell-off yesterday into a successful test, again, double test of that support, and it's holding right now. Let's watch the close today and see what happens. But right now, you have to say that as we're above this resistance, which is now held as support, there's definitely a very bullish bias here that continues. And structurally, this looks good. As long as you stay above the support, it looks very, very, very positive. Natural gas is not something that I trade or familiar with. I believe that is it. All right, I thought it was, but I could give a quick overview of it. And right, it looks extraordinarily bearish. You're into resistance over here right now. Looks like a good place to lean into short. Why? Because you know when you're wrong and you could get out of the trade, limiting your risk. You have to a test down here of the bottom, a pretty solid risk reward. Let me even look on the weekly to see if you get an easier look. I mean, it looks very bearish. This is up here. This is pretty strong resistance, just above $2. And now that you're coming back up there, getting close to testing that, place to look in and lean in to short. You're limiting your risk. You know where you're wrong. Here's the daily trading down right now. Take out the lows, and that could be your trigger with a stop loss right above there. I heard about that. I heard they had that anyone breaking the quarantine has a shoot to kill order. Right? That's crazy. Henry, let's check out the Canadian dollar, Swiss franc right now. We're seeing a little bit of the markets snapping to life now. Hopefully we do see that. Let me pull it up here. Canadian dollar, Swiss franc. Break and retest of strong resistance. So I'm looking here at the daily. I'm going to put in, this was the resistance, right? Zoom out over here. So we broke above that resistance, and here comes the retest. And it looks like that, it looks like that this is a possible fail here of this retest. Let me try to get a better look here. Maybe on the 4-hour. Too sloppy for me. Let me try the 12-hour. Right? So you can see over here the resistance. Maybe that should be red. Broke above, and now you're getting the retest. So is it too soon to say that this is a failed retest? For me, it's too soon to say whether or not this is successful or a failed test, right? First of all, you got to wait for the daily close, or the safest thing to do is wait for the daily close here. Wait to see if we close below or above this line over here. If we close below it, all right, then you could look at possibly a place to get short. Same thing, if you close above it, and then you start making new highs, that's a successful test. But this is good luck. This pair is completely in play right now as we are at an important level. You can see price trying to bottom down over here. Look at all this area. This came down hard and quick. Canadian dollar got wrecked. What's going to happen with oil? Are we going to get any type of agreement out of Russia and the Saudis when a production cut? Or is that deal going to fall apart and oil go back, test the lows, and trade under $20? I think that's going to happen, but who knows? And here that's being priced in, and we're at an inflection point after this break of resistance, and now we're retesting it to see. This could go both ways. So it does appear that there's a good chance that this, and this is what I was looking for this resistance, this local resistance, to be rejected and to hold as support. but not yet. I mean, sincerely, price is not doing anything yet, but you could see that we're coming to this really inflection point. You could see price coiling down, right? What price is coiling as it comes to this apex over here. And as it does, it's getting ready for a big move. Just to show you, as price is coiling, right? And it's too soon to say whether this move is going to be up or down, right? Nobody knows. It has a bullish bias because we're above this trend line, this yellow trend line. So it definitely has a bullish bias. If you look at the chart, it goes from left to right. It's bullish. It's towards the higher point right now. Take out this yellow trend line, and at that point, you could get near-term bearish on the dollar. But right now, the bulls have that edge, but I think it's too soon on today's session to call it. Everything is kind of subdued. Looking over here at the percentages, US dollar, Japanese yen, unchanged on the day. Euro, down 0.15. Everything compared to the price action we've seen of late is very subdued. Even the S&P, which is up 1.5 points, which seems like a lot, but not for the recent volatility. It's Wednesday of Holy Week. Traders are winding down, getting away from their desks. A headline could change everything. Speaking of headlines, let's take a quick look. And this is probably the most important headline you could see right now. Isn't sure which way it wants to go. It's unchanged on the day, and there's not really much going on. The reason that I'm just bringing your attention to the volatility of today is just so no one chases after momentum that's not there. It's obviously not a day where you could trade off of momentum. And the safest thing to do in a situation like that is really just move up time frame, trade off a higher time frame so you get a better look and a clearer signal. You're avoiding the noise. You're taking out the noise by doing that. It's really important to be aware of the conditions around you. Is it probable that the dollar is going to break out as you head towards towards lunchtime in New York? That's not usually the time of the day you see a breakout. And is there a strong possibility that in the near term, over the next several hours, we continue here? Yeah, that's where I'm leaning towards. You could see we're just in this tight little range. Does that break out maybe towards the close of New York? Maybe during Asia? Probably during London. Those are the questions I'm asking myself. That's the feel I'm looking to get. Obviously, we don't have the answers to those, but it's the questions we need to be asking. Yeah, I mean, all I could do is give you a look at the chart, and ultimately it's up to you to make those decisions. But what I'm seeing here on the euro US dollar is the first thing I'm seeing is I'm in a downtrend. You like everyone looking at this chart could see this is a downtrend. And then the next thing that I would like to add is that, I'm in the habit of selling off of resistance in downtrends. And this was resistance. This was an area to sell, right? Now, since this resistance held, what happened? Price came down all the way down into this area of local support. This is the support. This is just local support. And it bounced off into what? Into this area of local resistance. So, what do I expect that's going to happen? Well, I lean towards this holding. And if price starts resuming downwards, then that's a strong entry. Why? I'm in a downtrend. The first initial resistance held, right? If we get another result or another rejection by the local resistance, we're now making lower highs in that downtrend. Momentum has me to the downside. Now, if we clear above this local resistance, then I think I think for sure, and there's nothing for sure in the trading, that you're going to come up and test this resistance. Whether you break it or not remains to be seen. But if you're able to clear this resistance here to the upside, then I think you have a shot, a strong probability of trading up into this resistance. But right now, well, that's the look for you. I mean, there you go. There you go. That's a good one. And that's what I'm doing, but at the same time I'm watching just to see if anything does you know, develop. All right. So I think you could see here that false signal, the lower low in the 30-minute. And that's why I did say, I thought the 2 hours better, at least the 1 hour. Take in a slow moving market, take out the noise by moving up to a higher time frame. Absolutely, that's what we do here. That's what we do here together. Share information. Things are a little slow right now. I do want to stay on a little bit longer here, though, with you all, just to see if that changes. So I'm here hanging out with you. At this point in the live stream, the amount of conversation might digress a little bit, but we'll just see what happens a little bit right now. Low volatility, Martine. Absolutely. Low. That's the first thing we recognized coming into the session. And we've seen that maintain so far throughout. Of course, now we're approaching the time of day where that could change. We could see a little bit of spikes come into the market. I don't want anyone chasing after things, though. Mara had the best idea where she's saying, I'm going to wait until next week. That's good, strong, mature trading. Now, I'm not saying there's not opportunities and opportunities can't present themselves. Of course they can. We're watching that. This is one that we're looking at. And I would say that's a signal right there. if I would have entered this short, because I didn't, if I did, right there's what we were watching, tight stop loss. You could see 1-to-1, a little better than 1-to-1. So it's up a little higher. This is the bottom. Yeah, right. More or less. Call it in the middle. Right over there, it's a little bit better than 1-to-1 risk to reward. As you reach this area, move your stop loss to break even. And at that point, you're holding a free trade. If you get there, you're holding a free trade, right? Watching to see what price does here. Does it break through? If it breaks through, that's a nice trade, right? What happens here? What happens here? You give the trade a little bit of further room, right? If price then reverses and trades back above this area, all right, that's your exit. That's your exit, right? Or if a price breaks down below here, forget about it. So you have a couple options. I trade these. People learn in the academy a little bit more on specifics, giving myself multiple positions. That way, at certain levels, I could take a piece off. Seeing the dollar get fired up a little bit right now, at least versus the euro. Oh, I did want to check out on the pound US dollar, which I don't think that we've looked at today, and wanted to see what she was doing. Oh, we did look at this earlier. I don't think the support line here is relevant. I think its resistance is up here. Going back to over here. I think that's much more relevant. And then the support line down here. I want to add these to my chart just so I have a better feel for what's going on. I wish TradingView was intuitive enough to know that when I placed a horizontal line below price, it would put it in as green and above is red for support and resistance. But here's where we are on the euro US dollar. And we're just between support and resistance. We're in a downtrend. So I prefer selling into the resistance. Regain this line over here. And that means the DXY lost our yellow trend line. And that means a weaker near-term dollar. And then that would mean possibly this is a good trade here where we're trading up. But as of right now, looking to sell that resistance. Euro US dollar, because we saw the euro fall off a little bit. So the Australian dollar, look at that coming down now. Yep. Right. So this gets interesting now. If we get down into that support. If we do see risk on leave the market, if we see things changing in the headlines, if we see that it'll be very clear, right? Swiss franc starts appreciating at that point, then being long the euro versus the Australian dollar will become a very good trade, right? So just be patient and wait. U.S. equities almost up 2% on the day, really extending their gains now. And I'm still hanging with you all because I'm still interested in the current price action right now. So I want to see what develops. by the way, where price is right now on the euro. If you come over here, because we're in such a, the momentum is not there. You could see over here where my mouse is, right around this whole area. That's also a little bit area of light support. So watch what price does. What I do once I enter a trade, I enter a trade for very specific reasons. I do not exit my trade for any other reason. I don't. I have a stop loss. I know where I'm moving my stop loss. I do not exit the trade for any other reason. I don't enter a trade and then decide before my initial stop loss is hit where I move it to get out, ever. Yeah, we looked at a chart. I don't have any means of pulling up that chart at the moment, but there was, we counted them for the Great Depression. There was the big down move, and then it was 5 months before we started taking out the lows. So the easiest way, by the way, to trade that, I wish I had that chart to pull up with you right now, to be honest. That would make it much easier. But if we take out the lows, that's where the momentum hits, right? So if you just if we do take out these lows, then you will see the acceleration. I will make that my homework and look for that chart to see if I could find that and pull it up, and then we could get a clearer look at it. But yeah, we've only been now off the lows. We are about 2.5 weeks off the lows. So we'll see. Question remains, is this more of 2008 crisis, or is it the 2029 Great Depression style crisis? And we'll see. I remain open to a fluid situation to try to figure. Obviously, I'm still in the risk off camp. I'm not looking to buy into that risk on by any means whatsoever. But we were just looking, for example, at the pound US dollar. We know where the dollar weakens a little bit. We have that trend line that makes things really easy for us. It's very clear. And at the same time, a clear example of what I'm talking about, here on the pound, if we do take out this resistance here, all right, then I'm game. I think regardless of what happens with all these lockdowns, that the psyche of the of the normal person has been dramatically altered. That people are going to be a little reluctant to start moving about, to start traveling, to start spending money. A lot of people spent a lot of money last month on credit. If people are not working, that's going to continue to eventually they have no other means but default, as well as you're seeing small businesses being print the money, hand it out. Most of that money goes towards what where does most of that money go towards? Well, probably towards in one shape form towards the politicians. That's probably where it really goes, and whatever special interests they have. Then it's going towards big business, right? Airlines getting bailed out. Cruise liners that are not even based or pay taxes in the US are getting bailed out. Seems kind of crazy to me. We're seeing, automakers and everyone except the individual get bailed out. People don't have money to spend. People don't have money for food. People don't have money for rent. Landlords don't have money to pay mortgages. I can't see a V or U-shaped recovery. I see us headed for some more problems, but I'm still always open to whatever the market does and to find out what the truth is. No, let's take a look. Let's take a look right now at the Euro British pound with pleasure. Look at this. This becomes interesting over here as the pound is breaking this trend line. I like that now, definitely. And that looks pretty tasty. I wish that I had been astute enough to really play this breakdown up here, because so what happened was, as we were trading at these levels, I couldn't believe it. It just didn't make sense to me. So I stayed away from it. When something doesn't make any sense, I stay away from it. I wish I had been a better trader, been able to take a first piece of a short down here and now was adding to it. But that looks pretty strongly biased towards the downside. Julio, really good eye over there. Again, you have the stop up here above this last local resistance. Makes it kind of easy knowing where your risk is. On the downside, I have this support over here, but it's over there, right? And this one doesn't need, I have this one here because of these two touches, the touch here and the touch there. I'm going to remove that. This is the first area that I would look to see if price held up. And then we'll see. We'd have to see how that trade develops, but this is strong support down here. We're still in a very tight range. Everyone can now see why we're in that tight range. Price is coiling. Yes, price should break out over here with a strong move, but the time of day it is right now, the odds are that we're not going to see that happen as New York readies to go to lunch. I did that a couple of times. I gave a very good, a very descriptive and illustrated way why we're looking at the short here on the Euro-US dollar. What I do highly recommend is going back into the live stream, because if I do it again now, there's no way I'm going to be able to do it as well. I'll try. Let me take the try, but I do recommend going back into that live stream. YouTube allows you to go back and pull it back. We just did this a few minutes ago, but nevertheless, you're in this downtrend over here. Pull back off support into resistance, sell resistance, right? Now, since this resistance was sold yesterday, price came back down into this area of local support over here and bounced. Where did it bounce to? It was trading. Take away these last two bars. Take away with your mind, take away these last two bars. Everyone's looking at price trading up into this resistance. And so some people are getting quite bullish towards here, but people chase momentum. You sell resistance. You're in a downtrend, resistance held. This is the first test of local resistance. So as price made a lower low, that's the opportunity to get short. Coming down over here would be the first place to lock stop and to break even. Stop loss up here. I do highly recommend. It's not too far. It's probably about 15 minutes back from where we are right now. But go ahead and pull back. Look for that. It was a really good tutorial on the Euro US dollar short. And by just taking a little bit of time to do that, it'll be a good piece of information. Yeah, Julio, have a great night. Get some good rest. Thanks for sharing some time with us. Over here on the Australian dollar, US dollar, we also, let me pull back and get a bigger bit of perspective here for you. We're in a downtrend and now we're into strong resistance. It's more of a dollar story here. And you could see that, first of all, focusing on the dollar, the dollar is in an uptrend. The dollar above this yellow trend line is very bullish biased. And until we break below it, you got to be bullish on the dollar. Here, the Australian dollar, US dollar is into resistance. Why it's quite possible it's breaking above this resistance now. If you start making lower lows, this resistance held, and that's the time to short. If it breaks out to the upside over here, instead of playing the breakout, wait for the breakout, then retest of that broken resistance. See if it holds a support. Price starts making higher highs. That's where you get in a safe trade. Don't play the breakouts. Breakouts only get away from you about 5% of the time. The majority of the time, you have a breakout or breakdown and then a retest of that broken support or resistance. As you see price successfully test it, that's the place to get in. Price comes, if this resistance holds and price trades down, that's a good shorting opportunity. But the time of day we're at right now is not the time of day that you want to look to be picking up trades. This is the time of day to avoid trading as New York comes and heads into lunch. And at the same time, this is a good place for us to call it a session. It was a good one. I enjoyed all of you. Hope you all have a really great day. And I'll see you tomorrow.